shadow frequency, where the veil between this world and the next grows thin, and the things that whisper in the dark are given voice. From the cryptic candlelit studios, deep in the Indiana forests, your host, Matt Wilson, and his spectral producer, Juniper Ravenwood, unearth the forbidden, the forgotten, and the fearsome. So, still your heart, dim the light, and listen closely. For once you tune into the shadow frequency, you may never tune out.
Welcome back to the shadow frequency, where the signal is never quite clean, the shadows never sit still, and every strange case seems to arrive with one more question than answer. I'm Juniper Ravenwood, keeping watch tonight from the edge of the static. You ever notice how some stories don't knock politely, they just show up in the room with you? They stand in the corner, say nothing, and wait for you to realize they've been there the whole time. So gentlemen, what kind of case are we looking for tonight?
Tonight, June, I think we need a UFO sighting, something with military lights in the sky, witnesses in the field, and a paper trail that doesn't quite calm anything down.
UFO sighting. All right, Matt, we're going to check with the old haunted file cabinet tonight. I'm going to leave the Oracle of Nineveh alone for a little bit because he was getting awful grouchy and we're not really sure what it can do to us. So I'm opening the haunted file cabinet now. Careful with the second drawer here, it bites on damp nights. All right, I'm sliding over to the UFO section here. The tabs are humming a little. It's never a good sign. Here we go. Tonight's file is wedged between Welsh lights and military silence. And there it is, episode 333, the Pentyrch UFO Incident. Tonight, we're heading to South Wales to the village of Pentyrch and the nearby area around Llantrisant, where in February of 2016, a witness claimed to see an enormous pyramid-shaped craft in the sky. Not just a light, not just a dot moving in the distance, a huge structure. Strange objects breaking away from it, military aircraft entering the area, and a claim that something may have come down in woodland nearby. What makes this one so compelling is the strange overlap. On one side, you have extraordinary testimony. On the other, you have official confirmation that the military activity really was taking place in the area around that time. And between those two things is a gap wide enough for a legend to crawl through. Matt, since you chose this one tonight, what do you think?
I think this is exactly the kind of case that sticks with people because it refuses to sit neatly in one box. You can't just wave away the military presence, but the witness account goes so far beyond a routine exercise that you're left wondering what else was moving out there in the dark.
That's the part that gets me too. It's not just the lights, it's the timing, the location, and the feeling that the official version and the witness version are staring at each other across a locked gate. Chris, what about you?
It has all the ingredients, doesn't it? Small village, cold night, strange lights, helicopters, and then years of people asking questions that don't seem to get very satisfying answers. Whether you believe every claim or not, it's a proper eerie one.
Exactly. It's the kind of story where the silence after the event becomes part of the event. And with that, Matt, let's step into tonight's case.
You are tuned to the shadow frequency, where every whisper tells a story from beyond the veil. Hosted by Matt Wilson, produced by Juniper Ravenwood, with Chris Beach. The darkness continues.
Thanks, Juniper, and this really is one of those cases where you open the file and the air in the room changes a little. We're going to South Wales late February of 2016. Pentyrch sits on the western edge of Cardiff, a village with fields, lanes, hedgerows, and that particular quiet you get when the night has gone deep enough that even the houses seem to be holding their breath. In the early hours of February 26, Kaz Clark says she was drawn toward the fields behind her home. And what she claims she saw out there has become one of Britain's most debated modern UFO stories. Not a little blink of light, not a passing plane mistaken through cloud. She describes an enormous pyramid-shaped object, a massive shape of light hanging over the area, something so large and strange that ordinary language almost starts to fail around it. And that's where this case begins, not with rumor, but with somebody standing under the Welsh night sky, looking up at something that seemed too big, too close, and too deliberate to be there by accident. And then the sky began to act like it knew she was watching. Kaz described red and green objects, strange emissions like thick fingers of lightning, and the unnerving sensation that she had been scanned. That word matters because it changes the whole feeling of the sighting. If someone says they saw a light, we can picture distance. We can picture confusion. But when someone says they felt scanned, now the witness is not just observing the phenomenon is observing back. In the file here, I'm pulling out a printed copy of a local news article about Kaz's account, the kind you can imagine folded up, highlighted, and passed around by people who still argue about this case over coffee. It describes her saying the object was enormous and majestic, and that as it moved, other lights seemed to separate from it. That's the moment the story takes on a different shape. It stops being a single sighting and becomes a sequence, a craft, smaller objects, colors moving with intent, a witness in the field, and overhead, something that doesn't behave like weather, doesn't behave like a normal aircraft, and doesn't seem to care that human eyes are locked on it from below, like a silent machine opening a door in the dark. Then comes the military layer, and this is where Pentyrch separates itself from the usual strange light over a village story. According to the witness narrative and later retellings, helicopters entered the scene. Not one vague sound somewhere far off, but aircraft activity that people in the area remembered, talked about, and questioned afterward. The claim is that this was not merely a coincidence, not simply a training exercise unfolding near an unrelated UFO sighting, but that military forces were responding to whatever had appeared above Pentyrch. That's the legend at the heart of this case. A structured craft over the village, smaller objects breaking away, and then a military response that escalated the whole thing from eerie local mystery into something closer to a crash retrieval story. And imagine being there. You've just seen something impossible, something huge and lit in a way that doesn't fit the sky you know. And then the sound of helicopters starts coming in over the trees. At that point, the mind has to choose between two frightening possibilities. Either the military is part of what you are seeing, or they are reacting to something they didn't expect either, and neither answer lets you sleep easily afterward. The alleged path of the event pulls the story toward Llantrisant and the woodland area around Smilov. That's where the darker claim enters, that something came down, a non-human object, according to believers in the case, something shot down or forced down, something that left behind activity, searches, and a feeling among witnesses that the explanation given later did not match what had actually happened. Pentyrch has become a modern British crash legend because it has that same folklore engine you see in Roswell-style stories, a dramatic sighting, military presence, a claimed impact or retrieval zone, and then official explanations that people feel are too narrow for what they witnessed. The details have grown over time, as these stories do, but the core image remains powerful. A huge pyramid of light above a quiet Welsh village, strange colored objects moving away from it, aircraft arriving, something possibly descending into the trees. And once you picture that sequence, it's hard to put it back in the drawer because it feels less like a sighting and more like a confrontation witnessed from the edge of a field. And here's what gives the story that cold little hook in the ribs. There really was military activity in that area and time frame. That doesn't prove the extraordinary explanation, but it gives the case a backbone most UFO tales never get. This wasn't just someone saying, "I heard helicopters," and then everyone shrugging. Official records and later FOI material acknowledge military exercise activity connected to the region. For believers, that is the crack in the door. If the military was there, if aircraft were operating, if local people heard and saw activity, then Kaz's account suddenly sits inside a real-world framework. That makes the story harder to dismiss emotionally because the stage was real. The question is, what play was being performed on it? Was Exercise Chameleon just the explanation, or was it the curtain? That is the suspicion that keeps circling Pentyrch. Not simply there were lights, but there were lights and a military presence, and the official language never seemed to answer the emotional weight of what witnesses believed they saw. And when a witness's terror meets a government document, The result can be more haunting than either one alone. So in this first half, I want to leave us standing there in that field under that sky without rushing to explain it away. Picture the cold air. Picture the rural darkness around Pentyrch. Picture a pyramid-shaped presence overhead, enormous enough to make familiar land feel unfamiliar. Picture red and green objects moving like pieces of a machine. Picture lightning-like bursts, the feeling of being scanned, and then the heavy approach of military helicopters cutting through the night. The legend says something was engaged, something was forced down, something was taken from the woods, and what remained was the story the official record could not fully quiet. Whether you call it a UFO incident, a military operation, or one of those rare moments where both worlds overlap, Pentyrch remains unsettling because it gives us just enough solid ground to stand on, and then ask us to look up. And that's where we'll pause it for the moment, because once the helicopters arrive in a UFO case, the story usually stops being about what was seen and starts being about what somebody didn't want seen.
That field image is going to stay with me. A quiet village, a pyramid in the sky, and then the sense that the night suddenly had witnesses on both sides.
It's the military timing that gets me. Strange lights are one thing, but strange lights with aircraft moving around them, that's where your stomach drops a bit.
Exactly. In the second half, we're going into that paper trail, the Freedom of Information requests, the official answers, the withheld pieces, and the uncomfortable question of whether training exercise explains the whole night or only the part they were willing to name. June, Chris, over to you guys.
People say the military was running an exercise that night. Maybe there were. But if that is true, then somebody needs to explain what was hanging over those Welsh hills, because it sure as hell was not any aircraft we were meant to recognize.
So far tonight, we've got a huge pyramid-shaped object over South Wales, a witness who says she felt scanned, and a military aircraft moving through the same strange stretch of night. If you're listening right now and thinking, okay, but how much of this is on paper? Good, because that's exactly where we're headed after the break. Chris, I'm handing it over to you.
Thanks, June. And I've got to say, this one already feels like the kind of case where the more official language you read, the less settled you feel. A pyramid in the sky is eerie enough, but when you add helicopters and a village full of unanswered questions, that's when the shadows start leaning in. While you're here with us, do us a favor and like and subscribe on whatever platform you're using. It really does help the algorithms know there are people out there who enjoy wandering into the weird with us. You can also find the Shadow Frequency on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Rumble, and all the major podcast directories. And over at shadowfrequencypodcast.com, you'll find every episode, the companion blog, merch, show notes, and links to every platform. You can support the show by buying us a coffee on the website. And you can reach out there too by email or voice message, and your message may end up on a future episode. June, I'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Chris. All right, time to fire up the spectral cosmic message materializer, flipping the switches, the little glass tubes are glowing, the paper spool is twitching, and something is scratching its way through the static tonight. Let's see what the machine has dragged in from the dark.
Retrieved from the
Fresh
void.
strip of paper, slightly curled at the edges. Kind of smells faintly of ozone and bad decisions. But we've unfolded it now, and we're going to see who has found us through the fog. This one comes from Jeff in Georgia, who listens on iHeartRadio while working out. Says, hey, Matt, Juniper, and Chris. I usually catch the show early in the morning at my little gym out in the garage before work. I put in my earbuds, fire up iHeartRadio, and somehow a good UFO or cryptid episode makes the treadmill feel a lot less boring. Or maybe it just makes me run faster because I'm imagining something with glowing eyes behind me. I'm a big fan of the UFO cases and the conspiracy episodes, but I'll never turn down a good haunting either. You all have a way of making the stories feel creepy without making them feel fake or overdone. Keep the strange signal strong, Jeff in Georgia. Jeff, first of all, I love the idea of the shadow frequency turning a garage workout into a paranormal cardio. That is exactly the kind of multitasking the haunted universe appreciates. And second, thanks for listening on iHeartRadio and for sending that in. If you'd like to send us a message, you can reach us at shadowpodcast@protonmail.com. Right now, I'm going to turn it back over to Chris for a little shadow news.
Thanks, June. Jeff sounds like he's got the right idea. If a cryptid episode gets you through a workout, that counts as a public service. Now, speaking of eerie feelings and what might be behind them, new research out of MacEwan University in Canada suggests that some eerie feelings in so-called haunted places may have a very natural cause. In a lab test with 36 volunteers, researchers used hidden speakers to play infrasound at 18 Hz, a frequency too low to hear. Even though participants could not detect it, those exposed showed higher cortisol levels and reported feeling more irritable. Scientists say that means old pipes, ventilation systems, or other low vibrations could help explain why some places feel deeply unsettling. June, back to you.
Thanks, Chris, and that's fascinating because it doesn't make haunted places less interesting to me. It almost makes them more interesting because if your body can react to something yours can't hear, then imagine how many old buildings, underground rooms, factories, tunnels, churches, and empty houses have been talking to people without making a sound. But tonight, we're not in a haunted basement. We're back in South Wales, where the question isn't just what someone felt, but what witnesses say they saw and what the official paperwork does and does not explain. Matt, take us into the second half.
In Pentyrch, the strangest part was not just the lights in the sky. It was the feeling that something had gone wrong, and by dawn, powerful people were already trying to make sure the story sounded smaller than what witnesses say they saw.
Thanks, Juniper. And Jeff, thanks for the note. I love the idea of this show becoming workout fuel. Although if you start setting personal records during cryptid episodes, we may need to start selling haunted gym towels. And Chris, that infrasound story is perfect for what we do here because it reminds us that strange experiences can have layers. Sometimes the body reacts before the mind understands why. But Pentyrch is a different kind of strange. This isn't only about an uneasy feeling in an old room. This is about a witness account tied to a real night of military activity, followed by years of questions. And now I'm pulling another item from the file. It's a printed Freedom of Information response, the kind of document that looks boring until you realize every dry sentence is standing guard in front of something people desperately want clarified. The Ministry of Defense acknowledged that some information existed within the scope of requests about Exercise Chameleon, but also said certain details were withheld under Section 26, the defense exemption. That doesn't mean alien craft. It doesn't say crash retrieval. But it does mean that parts of the military picture were not handed over in full. And for a case like this, that kind of blank space becomes a dark room. The official answers are fascinating because they both calm and aggravate the mystery. On one hand, the Ministry of Defense response says no information was held for several of the dramatic UFO-specific questions. The lights in the field, the green object, whether something crashed into Smilog Woods, and what was removed from the area. It also says blank simulated ammunition was used and that no targets were fired on during the exercise. That gives a rational framework. A military exercise, nighttime activity, helicopters, simulated gunfire, and people nearby experiencing it as alarming. But then you hit the withheld material. Information about why military personnel were allegedly conducting searches for metal on Llantrisant Common was withheld under Section 26 after a public interest test. Details connected to an E-3 Sentry plane question were also withheld. And again, that does not prove a UFO was shot down, but narratively, emotionally, it keeps the door open because the official record is not a clean, bright room. It's a hallway with several doors labeled No Information Held, and at least one door labeled Information Held but withheld for defense reasons. For anyone already haunted by what Kaz Clark described, that distinction matters, and the silence starts to sound mechanical. Now here's the one skeptical angle we need to give listeners to chew on. A military exercise can create a deeply confusing environment, especially at night. Helicopters operating in darkness, flares, parachute activity, simulated ammunition, aircraft noise, lights at odd angles, and people being woken abruptly from sleep, all of that can distort perception. A witness may see pieces of a real exercise and interpret them through fear, surprise, and the pressure of not knowing what's happening. And in a rural night sky, depth is tricky. Size is tricky. Distance is tricky. A light that seems near can be far away. A pattern that seems structured can be created by separate moving sources. That's the reasonable counterweight. It is possible that what witnesses experienced was a real military exercise that looked far stranger from the ground than it was from the operational plan. But here's why Pentyrch doesn't die there. The witness account is not just, I heard noise and saw lights. It is specific, vivid, and insistent. Kaz Clark has remained firm about what she believes she saw, and for many people, the emotional force of that testimony keeps pushing back against the tidy exercise explanation like a hand against a locked door. Then there is the Welsh Government Freedom of Information response from 2024, which says that after searching paper and electronic records, the information requested about the alleged Pentyrch UFO incident was not held by the Welsh government. That is important, and we need to be clear about what it means. It does not confirm the UFO claim. It also does not disprove what witnesses say they saw. It simply says that the Welsh government did not hold that information. And that is one of the strange things about modern UFO cases. Absence of paperwork can be read two completely different ways. A skeptic says, there's your answer. No records, no incident. A believer says, of course the wrong office doesn't hold it. The sensitive material would be elsewhere. And once the case enters that loop, it becomes almost impossible to kill. Every denial becomes either a denial or evidence of compartmentalization. Every withheld detail becomes either routine defense caution or a shadow around the truth. That's why Pentyrch has become folklore in real time. It's not ancient legend. It is a freedom of information era folklore, built from witness memory, government language, local geography, and the suspicion that something extraordinary briefly broke through the ordinary world before being filed away somewhere the public can't reach. So where does that leave us? With a cold February night in South Wales, a woman who says she saw a massive pyramid-shaped object above Pentyrch, reports and claims of colored objects, scanning, helicopters, and something coming down near Woodland, official acknowledgement of military activity in the area, official denials or no information held answers for the extraordinary UFO claims, some defense-related withholding around the exercise, and a case that keeps generating argument because neither side can fully erase the other. If it was only a UFO story with no military backdrop, maybe it would have faded. If it was only a military exercise with no witness account, nobody outside the area would remember it. But together, those two threads twist into something stronger. Pentyrch endures because it lives in the overlap. The witness says something impossible appeared, and the record says the military really was there. Between those 2 points is the question that keeps this case alive. Did South Wales witness a confusing exercise, a misread operation, or a brief encounter with something that was never supposed to be seen, moving silently above a village until the helicopters came? That's the thing about Pentyrch. The official record gives you just enough to stand on, but the witness account keeps pulling your eyes back to the sky.
And even with the skeptical angle, I don't think the case loses its power. If anything, the paperwork makes it more uncomfortable, because there are answers, but not enough of them.
That's what bothers me too. A simple story usually settles. This one keeps shifting around in the drawer like it's still warm.
Exactly. Whether Pentyrch was a military exercise misunderstood from the ground or something stranger moving under the cover of one, it remains one of those cases where the silence afterward becomes part of the evidence. Juniper, I'll turn it back over to you.
A village under the clouds, helicopters in the dark, a pyramid of light over the trees. Maybe it was a drill, maybe it was a cover story. But whatever happened over Pentyrch that night, it left behind the kind of silence that feels manufactured.
Tonight, we stepped into the strange case of the Pentyrch UFO Incident, a cold night in South Wales, a reported pyramid-shaped craft, military activity, official records, withheld details, and a witness account that continues to haunt the edges of the story. Thank you for joining us here on The Shadow Frequency. If you want to reach out, send us an email at shadowpodcast@protonmail.com. And you can find more episodes, the companion blog, merchandise, show notes, and platform links at our website, shadowfrequencypodcast.com. You guys want to say goodnight?
Good night, everybody. Thanks for spending part of your night with us, and keep looking at the skies a little longer than you probably should.
Good night, everyone. Stay curious, stay careful, and if the helicopters show up after the lights in the sky, maybe make a note of the time.
Good night from all of us at The Shadow Frequency. We'll be back with another strange case from the edge of the signal soon. Keep your radio close, your curtains drawn, and your questions sharper than the shadows. The signal fades, but it never really leaves.
This episode was conjured with a solemn vow to explore the unexplained while remaining bound to the truths that have been unearthed. All interpretations are speculative and offered only for your enlightenment and your entertainment.